Welcome all of you to the first lecture of the Foundation Day Celebration Lecture Series on the topic Changing Role of Media and Definition of Neutrality in the Contemporary Context.
Faculty members, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students of Nirma University, I thank you very much for calling me this evening. Afternoon, actually. I lose sense of time. I am not in the business of giving speeches. Anyway, people accuse me of speaking too much every night. So I thought I'd pick up something and I'd have a conversation with you today. Because I rarely get to come out of the studio. So when I do, I want to use the opportunity for a little bit of introspection and to get some feedback from young students like yourself on how you view the media, on how you view our country, on how you view what's happening in our country, on what you want to be the role of the media in the future. What is the change that you want in your country? Do you want the status quo to continue, say 10 years from now? Do you want things to be the way they were? We are always told that when you are young, it appears that you will want to change things. But very often the older generation will tell you that, 15 or 20 years down the line, you will think like us. Have they told you that? I believe that I have been through that as well. So I want to tell you my story in the context of the subject that we are addressing. When I joined journalism in 1994, when you're straight out of college and you join journalism, the first thing that we were told is never express your opinion on anything. If you express your opinion, you are a bad journalist. You are not meant to comment. You are only meant to report. And in my growing up years, in the 80s, as a school student, we followed the media where we were told religiously, this minister said this minister said that, this minister cut this ribbon. And that was the media that we grew up with. So when I joined journalism, I was not surprised, but I was a bit taken aback. The first thing you were always told that, to have an opinion, you must be educated enough. So I came back and I started looking for a job. And I had done an MPhil from a foreign university, so they said, first you are overqualified to be a reporter. So we'll put you in the editorial page. So I said, what am I supposed to do in the editorial page? They said, you have only two places to be. One is your desk and the other is the library. I said, do I go out into the real world? No. What am I supposed to do? They said, you're supposed to go into the library, read and read and read, which was terrible for someone who had left studies because he was tired of studying, and write analysis, read foreign newspapers, read textbooks, read what people wrote in the 16th, 17th up to the 20th century, and do some nice punditry. So I was supposed to sit there, and at the end of the day, we were supposed to produce 200 words of wisdom, which was an editorial on the editorial page. And we were told that is where you belong. So we had a glass ceiling. The reporter says this happened here, and only the person in the editorial page puts opinion. And I lived with it. I found it stifling. How can you have an opinion when you don't go out into the real world? Is it possible to do that? Can you live in a library and decide everything about what's right or wrong in the world? So I came to Delhi and I wanted to be a reporter. And when I came to Delhi, they said, be a reporter, but never express your opinion. We launched Times Now in 2004. I came to Mumbai after 9 years in NDTV. And when we were building this channel, I got into a period of thinking. And what went on in my mind today, I want to put as questions to each one of you. We said, how do you launch a channel that is going to be different? Is there space for another channel? There's already an NDTV, right? What will you do? Create another NDTV? Who's going to watch? What's happening in this country? And we asked ourselves a very basic question. in the context of this, tell me today, and consider if you watch Times Now, you will understand where I come from. I present to you an obvious case of injustice. I present to you a woman who has been driven to her suicide. I present to you a case in which a woman who has been raped goes to a police station and says that the local MLA raped me, and instead of getting justice gets locked up in multiple cases of theft. I present to you a case in which, in a clear dereliction of duty, there are 100 open manholes in one area and a 4-year-old child falls in one of them and dies. What is going on? In my view, what is going on is there is something which is meant to be right, and there is something happening which is wrong. It's black and it's white. There is no gray. And my first question today is, as we speak about the changes in Indian journalism, is we decided, a group of us who were younger, more in touch with what was happening, more in touch with people even younger to us, tired of the same amount of pontificating and pro-establishment journalism which had been going on in the name of new journalism, and we said today, question one is this, and I put this question to each one of you. In an obvious choice between right and wrong, when facts stare you in the face, is it a virtue to be a fence sitter? That's my first question to this audience today. Now let me give you some examples. In November 2010, a story came to my mind which we found was worth reporting. A teenage girl had been raped by a powerful MLA in Banda in Uttar Pradesh and then framed and arrested for a theft that she did not commit. What do we do in an obvious case of injustice like this? We have two choices. Under the traditional definition of neutrality, the common refrain would have been the typical chalta hai response of the Indian establishment: let the law take its course. Have you heard this or not? Now we are tired of this, aren't you? We believe that this country is tired of this meaningless statement which says that the law take its course. And we believe that unless you embarrass, you project, you highlight, and if necessary you humiliate those who perpetrate injustice, there will be no justice in our country. Is that not being neutral? By the traditional definition of neutrality, we are not being neutral. We have taken sides. We have taken sides for the victim. We have taken sides against the oppressor. We are with the girl who has been raped. We are against the MLA who has raped her. If you remember what happened in that case, and my question is, first question is, had it not been for the relentless coverage, for the hounding of the authorities, that the girl was released and the MLA found himself in prison? I am asked very often, how many Banda cases will you report? This country is full of cases like Banda. How many such stories will you report? You are being selective. To them, my answer is very simple. I go by a logic which applies to the natural world. You set one example, you will frighten 10 other possible offenders. That is what we can do. I give you another example. Consider what happened in the Jessica Lal case. You all know the Jessica Lal case? Now, this bright young man called Manu Sharma was released from jail on a 30-day parole. Now, if you're a journalist, you know you don't get parole in this country very easily. You have to use connections, pull. Ask a common man today, a convict, to get parole. You will have to pull the strings to get parole. This man got parole to attend to his official records, his ailing mother, and perform rituals related to the death of his grandmother. During the second, now he goes on parole and he writes that I still need to be with my family, and he gets an extension. During the second extension of the parole for another 30 days, a camera catches this man, Manu Sharma, in the middle of a swiveling performance, dance performance in a discotheque. His mother, whose illness was one of the reasons for seeking the parole, is at a media briefing. She's having a news conference on how she's promoting a local cricket tournament at their family-run hotel in Chandigarh. My question to you is today, I don't know if you know what happened, but there was so much relentless reporting where the media took sides. Had it not been for this outcry, this man would have continued to be in parole perhaps for a year, and there would have been no accountability. We are asked here, why are you doing this? Why are you taking sides? To them, my question is, one Manu Sharma goes in, for another jail superintendent who will let 10 other Manu Sharmas go out because they are politicians' children. We believe that we create a sense of fear among those who are about to do wrong. By the standard definition of journalism, we have already become non-neutral. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I believe that the time has come for us to be a little biased in our approach. In Mumbai, at the end of last year, 2 boys were stabbed in a place called Versova by a gang of men with swords and knives because those boys, whose names were Keenan and Reuben. Have you heard the case of Keenan and Reuben? You know that they came out and they fought against a bunch of eve teasers. You know that. You know that these boys were killed in the front of about 100 other people who just watched and nobody did anything. You know that particular instance. Now, in that particular instance, had it not been for the media coverage, that story would have been buried in the inside pages. It would not have got noticed. And there are 1,000 such stories which we pick up as cases of advocacy. There is the Banda rape case. There is the Keenan and Reuben case. Now, I want to tell you another story. Sanjay Dutt was being sentenced. You know Sanjay Dutt? Some things have happened in my life which make me look at what we do and the positions that we take. Very often the media also gets it completely wrong. So Sanjay Dutt was being sentenced and we were in the middle of what we call a great television camera chase of Sanjay Dutt. Sanjay Dutt was going from Arthur Road jail in Mumbai to Yerada prison in Pune, and on that highway there was Sanjay Dutt's van and there were 20 other cameras with speeding cars following him on the Mumbai-Pune expressway waiting to get one shot of Sanjay Dutt. And the entire national media was focusing on Sanjay Dutt. He would wave, then some channel would show his hand and then put a circle on it. Sanjay Dutt ne wave kiya. He would say something, "Main theek hu, I have faith in the law." They would highlight that as an exclusive. And to be very honest, I too was part of that mad chase. Had we got permission from the government to put helicopters, I would have put helicopters on top to get a shot of Sanjay Dutt's police van. That afternoon, this was July 2007, I got a phone call at 3 in the afternoon. At 3 in the afternoon, this person comes on the phone and says, "Is that Arnab?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I have watched you and I have watched your channel and I have watched TV channels for many years. But I am calling you today to say from now I will never, ever watch you or watch any news channel in my life." I didn't know who the person was, so I stepped back. I said, one minute. Okay, I know who's speaking, please. So the person says, and he shared a story with me. He said, "Yesterday my best friend died. And my best friend's name is Colonel Vasant. And Colonel Vasant was a full colonel. He was 42 years old. He was 15 days from premature retirement. And on spotting a group of infiltrators in Uri, this man who was from the 9 Maratha Light Infantry Regiment, I've taken notes of this because I remember this case again. He sees terrorists. He has the option of telling his men to go and attack the terrorists, but this man, single-handedly, with a pistol in his hand, in the middle of a dense forest, goes forward, and he kills 3 terrorists, is grievously injured himself. His Subedar is hurt, and Colonel Vasant, while trying to save his Subedar, asks him to leave, takes the hit himself and dies. So while Sanjay Dutt was being covered, Colonel Vasant had died the day before his body was brought to Bangalore. And this man told me that I was Colonel Vasant's best friend. But all you TV channels out there have not spent 15 seconds on Colonel Vasant. And you're spending 15 hours on a man who's caught in a criminal case just because he happens to be a film star. I was shocked. I was guilty. And I said, I'm very sorry. I will make amends. And I took the pictures from Doordarshan of the last rites of Colonel Vasant, and I told him that I want you tonight to come on my program and speak about Colonel Vasant. Because inside me somewhere, there was an upsurge that what I was doing was wrong. That I was misusing my power as a television news editor. That I was not putting out what needed to be put out for this country. And that perhaps in the chase for ratings, I was not being responsible to my own ethics of my profession. So I told him, you come and speak about it. Now that's not where the story ends. So that night, after the story on Colonel Vasant is aired, I asked my producer, is this gentleman ready? And our producer tells me, yes, she is ready. So I said, she, but it's a gentleman who called me. He said, no, someone else. I said, who is on air? From Bangalore. They said, it is Colonel Vasant's wife who has come to speak. It was 9 o'clock. I will never forget that day in July 2007. Because Subhashini Vasant, she came within 3 hours of cremating her husband. And that night, I didn't have a second question to ask. Because when she spoke about how proud she was about her husband, and when she spoke about how she would send her young son into the army if required, and what she thought of the army, and what she thought of the nation, and what she thought of her husband's sacrifice, I had no second question to ask. Why am I telling you this story today? I'm telling you this story because there are moments in our career when you step back and it's a moment I call of self-realization. When you realize that there is a bigger motive to our business. At that point, I realized that this profession needs a bit of correction. You look back at the history of 2007 to 2012, which is the period when Times Now has become over a period of time India's #1 channel. We have decided to take a position on issues which are a choice between right and wrong. When people tell me today, why are you so aggressive vis-a-vis Pakistan? People say that you're a rebel rouser. You're too nationalistic in your position. When you get the experience of Colonel Vasant, when you cover 2611 from close, is it possible that it does not affect you somewhere? I'm asking you. My question to you is, if you were to watch a case of injustice happening right next to you, would you be affected by it or not? Tell me. Or would you step back and say, no, I'm going to be neutral? If you see someone being beaten up who you know being beaten up or thrashed, if you see a woman being assaulted right next to you, when you see something happening repeatedly in front of you, tell me, what will you do? Will you step back and say, I will be neutral, I will not do anything, let the law take its course? Will you do that? That's my question to you. I find it difficult to do that. And I find it impossible that in a country where we see so much injustice happening around us, where unfortunately, till we make a lot of noise, nothing gets done. People call me from all over now and they say, this case of injustice. I had a case where somebody said, this 19-year-old boy died with 30 marks on his body. He was innocent, he was a law student. And I say that, is there any justice for that person? And when the media picks up a story, I would say that perhaps we are not successful all the time. But even if we have a hit rate of 50%, I say it's right. I am told today that the Ruchika Girotra case is an example of what the good work the media can do. You know the Ruchika Girotra case. There are some students of media and law, I presume. Do you know the other side of the story? Do you know how Ruchika Girotra happened? Do you know how the story came to the national attention? Do you know that story? We were sitting on a Monday editorial meeting in Times Now, going through the list of stories. Like we do. I'm sure when you plan your week, you decide what chapters you have which classes you have the whole week. You do or not? So we sit on a Monday and we say, what are the big developments happening? We saw this story from Chandigarh, and it's one line in the story, hearing in Ruchika Girotra case. Matter likely to be postponed. That's how a story comes when it comes to us. What is that story? We find out a little bit more. Find out a little bit more. When we find out more, we ask the local journalist that, my God, are you telling me that a 14-year-old girl was molested by a top police officer and the case has been going on and on and on for 1.5 decades? What are the local media doing? You know the response we often get? ऐसे तो बहुत cases हैं. Have you heard this before? I hear this all the time. The response was, and what you need to ask today if you're students of media and law, what was the focus of the media in the Ruchika Girotra case for 15 years before it was picked up aggressively by Times Now? Just do a check. If you are on the internet, go back and today do a Google search. Not of what happened to the Ruchika Girotra case after we picked it up. Look back and check what was happening to the Ruchika Girotra case before we picked it up. And the answer is very simple. There was nothing happening. There was no pressure. Mr. Rathore was out. There was no public scrutiny. Witnesses has been covered up. Police statements had been contorted. Eyewitnesses were present. They were disregarded. A list of eyewitnesses were produced. Evidence was missing. Standard case. There are 1,000 such cases which happen in this country because the prosecution in the country is always in the hands of people who are powerful. If you want to expose, you can expose. But if you want to conceal, you can conceal. As you go out today in the world, you will realize today that the change that is happening around us and the change that this country needs is not a change on Facebook and Twitter, where people express outrage in 140 characters. The change that this country needs, which your generation needs to do, is to amplify what is happening in the media. I'm asking you today, do you feel angry about what happened in the Ruchika Girotra case? Have you read the case? Does it provoke something in you? When you hear the story today about a politician, have you heard about the Geetika case in which a girl has committed suicide 3 days back? Can you imagine the pain? Last night I had the mother who came to me and she said, I fear for my son because I had lost my daughter. I want security for my son. Do you know how difficult it is for a common man today to go out and challenge the system? And you know what the mother was telling me last night? She said, I am pleading with folded hands to the media, don't cover this story for 3-4 days and go away. Please don't go away in 3-4 days. You know why they say that? Because they really fear that once the media goes away from a story, then it's back to square one. I am asking you today, each one of you in the audience, has there been a moment when you have faced some case of serious injustice? Have you faced it? No? Yes or no? Next time when you see a story happening around you on television, put yourself in the shoes of the person experiencing it. It can be very difficult to experience that. I have seen loss from up close. When I started my career, I went to Bihar and I found on my travels this interesting experience. I went to Purnia in 1996. There was an election going on. There was a man called Pappu Yadav. You know Pappu Yadav? You know all of them. So Pappu Yadav, I went to interview him, and as I was leaving, he was the local Bahubali, as they said. And so he said that Very good. I interviewed him and I was about to leave. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I've done my job. I'm now going back." He said, "You're not going anywhere." So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Now you're with me." I was shocked. Bahubali is not letting me go. It's true. And then his men came around, and when Pappu Yadav tells you your time has come to go, you will go. Till Pappu Yadav tells you you are supposed to be here, you have to be here. Shocked. I didn't know because, coming from my background, I had never experienced something like this. So Pappu Yadav took me everywhere. And he would say, there would be gatherings, people would sit, he would sit on a charpa and everyone would sit on the floor. And he would say, "Do you know who this boy is?" And everybody would say, "No." "Do you know where he is from?" And I would look at myself. Where have I landed myself? And he'd say, "He's from the BBC." And everybody would gravely say, "BBC." And he said, "Do you know what the BBC has said?" And everybody said, "No." He said, "The BBC has said that Pappu Yadav will win this time." And I would be shocked. If I opened my mouth, I would fear for my life. But that's one part of the story. When you go back today, also look at another person called Ajit Sarkar. You've heard of Pappu Yadav, you haven't heard of Ajit Sarkar. There was one person standing in an election against Pappu Yadav, a man from the CPIM. I wanted to interview him. He would not meet me. His wife told me that he was scared for his life. Eventually, when he met me, he said that I know I'm going to be killed. This was 1996. I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I'm standing against Pappu Yadav. The price of standing against him is to be killed." I don't know where the case is today, but I remember my interview with Ajit Sarkar, and Ajit Sarkar was killed. On my way back from Purnia, I went through Katihar, where I met this young woman, and when somebody comes to you, a 23-year-old woman with a child in her hands, and you want to interview her, you ask her, why she says, "My husband was killed last night." And she says it like a matter of fact, because he wanted to earn some money as a political worker for one party, the other party got angry and they just killed him. They cut him into pieces and they left his body. I want to ask you today, are you sure that India does not exist anymore? In this wonderful campus, in your world, doing your course, are you connected to that part of India? Should stories from that part of India not impact us? If I'm supposed to talk about what is going wrong in that part of India, do I detach myself and do I become so objective in my approach that I allow the injustice to continue? What story should be on the front pages of India in 2030? Should it be the story of party factionalism, or should it be the story of individual injustice? When we open up the phone calls today, we did a story, I don't know if you saw, that a sweeper is doing an operation in Uttar Pradesh. Have you heard of this story? Now, let me tell you one thing. There is no neutrality there. Because by the standard definition of neutrality, I should let the law take its own course. Why am I sitting in judgment and saying that is wrong? Am I not, what do you say in law, judge, juror, and am I not standing in judgment? Am I not changing the definition of journalism? But if you want to, I can bring you to the Times Now newsroom, show the picture out there of the sweeper who is carrying out the operation, and you say open the phone lines and you ask people to call in from all sides of India on, do you think this is the classic example of the chalta hai attitude in our country? And the phone lines buzz like never before. There is a lot of pent-up anger in this country. I don't know if you sense it. What happened with the Anna Hazare movement last year was the consequence of the pent-up anger of people at corruption. There is a lot of pent-up anger in people against the chalta hai attitude. Unfortunately, in our country, the pent-up anger does not get channelized in the right direction. And that happens to be the bane of our profession. Finally, one last point I'd like to make to you. The problem in our business of journalism has been that the journalist has become too close to the establishment. I would like to invite all of you to my studio in Lower Parel. We sit in one place in Mumbai. We are not connected to the establishment. We don't shake hands with politicians. I believe that you can be a good journalist as long as you keep a distance from the people you report on. Can you have dinner with Suresh Kalmadi at night and report on him in the morning? Can you? He'll invite you for dinner, I'm telling you, I can assure you. But you won't be able to do a good story on him in the morning. In our career, in my career, in Times Now, we have made a choice. Keep a distance from the establishment. Media, by its nature, is supposed to be in a state of perennial conflict with people in power. You agree or not? If I become part of the establishment, then I become one of the courtiers in the court. I am not independent in my thinking. To be independent in your thinking, you need to be far removed from the establishment itself. Anyway, I think I've gone on for too long. I don't believe in making speeches. I've already made one. I ask 3 questions at the end. Will you watch a news channel that reports just what happens, or will you watch a news channel that exposes what is wrong? B, in today's world, do you already have many ways in which information, the pure facts, reach out to you? How involved are you with what is happening around you? 3, ask yourself, if you see a case of injustice happening around you, will you step up? Will you do something about it? Or will you treat it like somebody else's problem? The way we do the news is not to treat some injustice as somebody else's problem. So we hope we make a change. I thank you. I'm sorry if I've taken too much time already. But thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.